Senate will come to order. The senators will please take their seats. For what purpose does the senior senator from Chesterfield, Senator Chase, rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for the purposes of a personal privilege, please.
Senator, it's the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. It was a great honor to speak at the January 6th Stop the Steal pre-rally in D.C. at our nation's capital in support of fair, transparent elections, in which every legal vote counts. An election in which, win or lose, voters have confidence that the system is fair. Under the pretense of COVID, all of that changed this year. Under the pretense of COVID, many of the safeguards that are normally in place to protect the integrity and sanctity of our elections were discarded, like the elimination of the photo ID law and the elimination of a witness signature for mail-in ballots, placement of unattended ballot boxes in non-specific locations in which anyone could drop off as many ballots as they desired. Mr. President, there are still outstanding concerns that thousands of votes in each state were switched from Biden to Trump by Dominion voting systems and manipulated by outside influences. Whether you agree with this opinion or not, quite honestly, is irrelevant because 83% of Republicans polled by Gallup in the days afterward indicated that they did not believe the reports. Many voters this year, like never before, they see the degradation of our election laws and decreased accountability and transparency as an intentional and coordinated attempt to create chaos with that an opportunity for our election system to be overwhelmed with mail-in ballots. How many times this summer did elected Democrats, some of who are sitting in this room today, participate in peaceful rallies that turned into violence? Bricks thrown at law enforcement, businesses completely destroyed, cemeteries of war veterans desecrated with spray paint, set on fire, toppled to the ground, and one person was seriously injured. State and federal properties owned by the constituents of Virginia were destroyed. Even a former governor, Terry McAuliffe, referred to this as good trouble. Were Democrats trying to create, as they would say, good trouble under the guise of COVID to ensure President Donald Trump would not be elected? As a result, many Americans and Virginians feel that on Tuesday, November 3rd, a crime was committed by some in conjunction with the National Democratic Party to hijack our national election to ensure President Trump was not reelected. They feel the election was stolen. They came to D.C. on Wednesday, January the 6th. I attended both a pre-rally at the Capitol at 10 a.m. and one near the Washington Monument at 11 a.m. at which President Donald Trump spoke. Both rallies I personally attended were peaceful, as evidenced by the video I recorded with my phone, scanning the millions of peaceful Americans standing shoulder to shoulder, packed in like sardines, yet remaining courteous. Mr. President, these were everyday, ordinary citizens dressed in patriotic gear, many draping the American flag around their shoulders. The people I met were patriots who loved their country and drove from as far away as California to witness history, which they hoped would be overturning of the election results and set a second set of electors adopted. They had hoped that their presence would give Congress the courage to do the right thing and provide some sort of remediation. I can tell you that every person I spoke to said they felt our election was stolen. We have millions of people across our country right now who do believe this. They are frustrated because the governmental systems they were supposed to trust failed them, including the judicial system. I had to be there to represent those of us who believe this election was stolen from we the people. Most have seen the video footage or heard the sworn testimonies, have from disenfranchised voters who say their vote was not counted. And when states were audited, we see firsthand where the guardrails have come off. A deluge of mail-in ballots, thousands of votes switched by Dominion voting systems. Mr. President, to many who see this, they say this was not a fair, free election, not believing that what they believe are lies, deception, and complete stealing of this year's 2020 presidential election. And with all due respect, in Virginia, I blame the Democrat-led General Assembly for passing some of the most egregious changes to election laws here in Virginia. Election laws in Virginia's history, eliminating voter identification laws, eliminating witness signatures, and flagrantly allowing anyone to put ballots in unattended ballot boxes. First of all, I will not be lectured about civility by the same politicians who remain silent while our cities and communities were burned and destroyed by domestic terrorist groups, Antifa and BLM. I will not be lectured about accepting election results by the same politicians who just 4 years ago not only refused to accept election results, but orchestrated an all-out attack on the delegitimization of President Trump's election. They tried impeachment trials, bogus Russian collusion scandals, and coordinating nationwide election fraud to steal an election using COVID as an excuse to deny individuals of basic constitutional rights. If it weren't for double standards, Mr. President, some politicians would have none at all. But more importantly, I want you to say a name. Ashley Babbitt. Say her name. An unarmed veteran who was shot by Capitol Police. The woman fatally shot inside the U.S. Capitol Wednesday has been identified as Ashley Babbitt. Babbitt was a 14-year veteran who served 4 tours with the Air Force and resided in San Diego, according to media reports. Babbitt was a strong supporter of President Trump, according to her husband. We remember Ashley and the 3 who died of medical emergencies and the Capitol Police officer who died during the chaos at the Capitol. These were not rioters and looters. These were patriots who love their country and do not want to see our great republic turn into a socialist country. I was there with the people, I know. Don't believe the fake media narrative. Millions of people did not show up at the Stop the Steal rally to riot. We are not BLM. The media wants to discredit us and discredit the president, but I was there, and I'm going to tell the truth because I saw it. The people of America had no one to fight for them until Trump. The people of Virginia had no one to fight for us until me. And like the president, I tell the truth, and I don't surrender. Virginia has suffered under career politicians. They betrayed us and turned our once prosperous Commonwealth into a cesspool of poverty, racism, corruption, and heavy-handed government control. President Trump gave Americans their country back, and it's time for Virginians to be Americans again. Mr. President, I have never once called for violence. I have never participated in violence, and I don't call for it in any way. We need, as the people of Virginia, I'm calling for peace. But I think it's important for those in this body to understand what other Virginians are thinking right now and why they are upset. What happened at the Capitol, I think it's wrong what happened, and I stand against the violence. But I think it's important that we understand that we in this body need to take a look at the actions, what is being called an insurrection now, and decide what we as Virginia legislators are going to do, which is why I am putting in legislation to put the guardrails back on our elections and to put those safeguards back in place to ensure we have a transparent, fair elections here in Virginia. And any effort by this body to censor me is completely outrageous. And I will call it for what it is worth. It is incomprehensible, the level of hypocrisy that is going on by members in this body who have participated in those very same riots and peaceful protests. So if you're going to call me out, I'm going to start calling people out in this room as well. If we're going to be a unified body, that includes all of us, including this senator right here, who is also, to remind some of you, a member of this body. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Fairfax, Senator Saslaw, rise.
Point of personal privilege.
Senator, has the floor.
You know, I've been here quite a while, and I've heard quite a few personal privilege speeches. But I got to tell you, I haven't heard anything even remotely close to what I heard a little while ago. And quite frankly, it would have been a little bit better and understandable if the senior senator from Chesterfield would have started out by saying once upon a time, because essentially that's what it was. It was a fairy tale. Comments that I just heard like that, if they appear, the Washington Post over there, comments on that, or the Richmond Times-Dispatch, hopefully you'll put it in your Believe It or Not column. You know, I voted for, back in '68, I voted for Hubert Humphrey. I was disappointed when he lost. I was disappointed again when Nixon was reelected, when Reagan beat Carter, when the first Bush beat Dukakis, and the second Bush beat Gore, and the election of Trump. I never once complained. I never once yelled fraud. And something that some of the people might think about, the two senators from Georgia that just lost, neither one of them claimed that the election was stolen or rigged. Now, here's the question, and some of the people who believe these fairy tales, and that's what they are, might ask themselves, the president said his election was stolen in Georgia. He lost statewide by 11,700 votes. The two who didn't claim their election was stolen lost by, I think it was like 50 and 80,000 votes, which means that a Republican running statewide for president can do a lot better if the Democrats steal the election than if they don't. Does anybody want to explain that to me? This is just absurd. All these years, all these elections, nobody's ever made a claim like this, but we never had anybody in the White House like that. And by the way, having an American flag draped over your shoulder doesn't mean you're a patriot, particularly when you got a Nazi insignia under it or a Camp Auschwitz shirt. Get that straight. Thank you, Mr. President.